Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing a contentious debate. Today we'll be speaking about the President's participation, or the sixth participation of the President to the UN General Assembly. President Fattah al-Sisi already arrived in New York on Saturday morning, and he gave a speech today on Egypt's vision towards health reforms and health efforts in Egypt in a very special session on health. The President is to give his speech before the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday or in his capacity as the chair of the African Union and of course Egypt's leader. The President has already held a number of sidelines meeting with a number of Arab, African and foreign leaders and prime ministers. The President held a tripartite meeting yesterday with the Jordanian King and the Iraqi President, where he discussed a number of regional issues of great concern to the Middle East. He also met with the Sierra Leone President, where he discussed African files and issues, particularly how the reforms pertaining the UN Security Council, where Sierra Leone is the coordinator of the 10-member committee assigned with reforms or larger representation of Africa in the UN Security Council. Today, the President met with the Italian Prime Minister, the Belgian Prime Minister. Yesterday, also, he met with the General, or rather, the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization, or the FAO, where they discussed the food security and safety worldwide. We'll be speaking about that and more. Before we start with our discussion, the President will be giving a speech before a special session for the climate change. So at any time we'll be having the speech of the President on air. Let me welcome our distinguished guests, Ambassador Hajar Al-Istanbuli, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Dr. Said Sabry, Senior Climate Change Expert and Egypt's former representative at the last Climate Change Summit. Thank you very much for joining us. Just as I said, we'll start with Ambassador Hajar Al-Istanbuli and, of course, ladies first. But we have seen this sixth participation of the President to the UN General Assembly, and this has been an almost something that happens or occurs every year. It's a habit that we participate in each year. UN General Assembly. How significant is that? Why Egypt is always keen to be present at this platform of the world?
Well, actually, Egypt has been always very much involved with the United Nations since the creation of the United Nations. We're one of the 50 countries that kicked off the creation of the UN in San Francisco, 1948. And ever since, we had a great interest. But during the last 6 years, the interest has risen to the level of the President himself. He is attending, he has attended. I think that this would be the sixth
participation, yes, indeed.
Sixth participation. And that gives a very strong message to the world that he is committed for such a multilateral forum that represents the whole of the world. It gives a message that all what has been discussed is being looked into very thoroughly by the Egyptian presidency in Egypt. So I think the presence of the President add to the level and the leverage of Egypt within the United Nations activities. The General Assembly is the big parliament of the world, where you will meet members of 193 countries, many of them at levels of prime ministers and presidents, and few countries which foreign ministers. There are different heads of missions
Yes.
attending the General Assembly. But the presence of the president himself adds to our position, because when he is laying his speech, the general debate speech, which is the main statement of the president, he will be portraying Egyptian positions towards the different agenda items that will be discussed in this assembly. And he will be also raising concerns about issues that are not tackled properly from the point of view of Egypt. This time he is representing Egypt, of course. Additionally, he is the head of the African Union. So he has to present as well in his statement partly the positions of Africa as a whole concerning environmental issues, concerning social and economic issues, and also, of course, issues related to peace and security in the world.
Very much indeed. If we speak about one of the issues that is taking a center stage is the climate change issue. And we have seen millions and millions of youths worldwide holding protests for this climate change issue that is considered by the whole world as a real threat to existence, to live existence. How far is this an important issue on the agenda of the UN this round, in its 74th round, and how the President is so much concerned and keen on attending and even giving a speech in it?
In fact, the climate change issue is considered as a very important topic since the first summit that have been held in New York in 2009. And since that time, the climate summits are always held for this importance. And the feeling of the world about the threats coming from the climate change increasing from year to year. And the evidences are quickly gathered to say that there is a real threat from the climate change, and there is a need for all the countries, all the world, that they should cooperate with each other to combat the climate change threats. This is very important. That's why we found also the civil society is aware about this issue from the beginning. And since I think that before 2009, the manifestations regarding the climate change issue is increasing from year to year.
Getting back to you, Ambassador Istanbuli, and we spoke about the 74th session and the importance of Egypt's existence. Let me take the agenda of this year and the main focus of the files on this round.
Well, it covers a wide range of areas. It covers, of course, challenges, political challenges, especially in our region, problems in our region. That has erupted for so long now, 7 years, 8 years. We have civil wars around, and it's very serious, becoming serious. Of course, the issue of terrorism heads the agenda as well, and as a challenge, a major challenge. This is when it comes to peace and security issues. But again, there are other sides that are included in the agenda. Economic, social, and environmental. So there is the issue of health insurance and comprehensive health insurance. It's a year where issues related to health and development of health in developing countries is very important. Another issue is sustainable development, economic development, I guess this round, this year, the General Assembly has a slogan that's convening underneath it. This slogan includes social, economic, and poverty alleviation, which I think there is a big title that has been, as you know,
a slogan, yes.
a big title for this round of General Assembly. Usually we have an agreement upon this agenda. This meeting will be held under this slogan. So we have a big title. Unfortunately, I cannot remember the whole thing, but it covers economic issues, social, and so on, and issues related to youth. As Dr. Said was mentioning, that the civil society is coming very strong on the issue of climate change.
Yes.
And we have witnessed demonstrations all around the world that has been already,
taking place.
Taking place, and it was prepared by civil society active groups, defenders, as we say, of the environment, because climate change is a very serious issue. It entails changing the lifestyle in the whole world.
Yes.
We have to change transport, we have to change electricity, we have to change industrial development, and so on and so forth.
Even our dietary.
Yeah, even our dietary. Yes, of course, food and agriculture and so on, yes. So it covers a wide range. It's very difficult to get an agreement for how to implement what has been the convention itself, because what they are discussing now, they are discussing protocols of emissions and how to implement the general convention that has been agreed upon. And that's where Paris comes in, and of course other meetings. Some of them failed, others are successful. So it's a very important issue for Egypt, for Africa, serious challenges in Africa, desertification,
natural disasters.
Natural disasters. We have people are moving, migration from one place to the other. They are searching for water, searching for agriculture, and so on. So there are serious issues that entails climate change for Africa and for Egypt, especially for Egypt. I think Dr. Said can talk about that.
You spoke, sir, about the civil society and their determination or their focus on such an issue, which is climate change and all its threats. If we speak about the global will, or rather the leaders' will towards such an issue, and how far is this particular file is met seriously from world leaders, and how far do they really feel the threat?
In fact, I think this is my opinion, that this issue is not met perfectly from the world leaders, like the civil society. I mean that the civil society is more concerned about the climate change issue more than the world leaders, because the world leaders are, of course, concerning about their countries, about the economy of their countries, and they face challenge from the lobbies of industry and the power generation in their countries, and they have to balance between these issues. And we see that the developed countries are not, until now, are not serious to tackle the issues of climate change, because in Paris Agreement and also the original agreement of climate change is very good, but the problem come into the
implementation process.
Implementation and the details. We say that the devil stays in the details. When we came into implementation, we can find that the same sentence can be explained with two points of view, by the developed country and by the developing country. Even they are sharing the same sentence in the beginning. And the other, I think that if the world leaders don't come to agreement to cooperate with each other to tackle this problem, there will be a serious problem in the future.
We'll come to you and back to you, sir, about Egypt's position, but let me get back to Ambassador Stambouli. And yesterday there were, and today of course, there were important side meetings that took place between the President and some of the world leaders. Yesterday I have seen a very important tripartite meeting between the President, the Jordanian King, and the Iraqi President, where they spoke about a range of issues pertaining the Middle East, particularly the Palestinian cause. Not just the Palestinian cause, but also the situation in Syria, the situation in Iraq, in Yemen, and all the Middle East crises. But when we speak about this important meeting and how urgent it was and the outcome of this meeting.
Well, it's very urgent. As you mentioned, these are serious problems that we're facing in the region. And I think the focus of the meeting stressed the importance of the Palestinian cause, because we're facing actually a disaster in the Palestinian problem, our place. Nothing, we're hearing about ideas and thoughts and the century agreement and I don't know what. All that raises doubts and challenges for the whole of the Arab world. And still the Palestinian problem is the core of the issues of the developments. We have problems in Syria, in Yemen, and Libya, and so on, and they are very important. But this Palestinian problem has been with us now for how long? Almost 70 years now, 60 years, almost. Yes. Almost, we're still talking. We have a framework that has to be implemented. We have approached, we've done that through the United Nations. We've done it through multilateral forums where we had the Madrid conference and so on and so forth. We have done it with the Egyptian initiative of President Sadat in 1977 and so on. And the agreement, we have the Camp David Accords, we have two frameworks. One for Egypt, the other one was for the Palestinian problem. Unfortunately, we have implemented and finalized ours. Also, Jordan has an agreement with the Israelis. But the Palestinians, where we have all the ingredients for peace, we have an arsenal of international rules and resolutions within the United Nations, either Security Council resolutions or General Assembly resolutions. We're even getting back to the framework of the famous resolution of the General Assembly of 181, which was that created Israel. And it has created also a Palestinian state, which has not been implemented. And now for the Arab positions, we've tried all avenues to try to reach peace.
Just to remind people about the 181, which was the first resolution that speaks about the existence of a two-state solution and that the existence of Israelis rely on the existence of a Palestinian independent state. So they can accept Israel in the first place as a country in the United Nations because it has never been accepted yet.
And it's a resolution of the United Nations. It's a decision that has been taken by the international community
at large. Very much indeed. Before we continue on with our discussion and before going back to the climate change and its reflection on the African continent and the whole world, let's first have a quick break and we'll come back.
قصة نجاح شعب عظيم قدر يغير الواقع ويهزم المستحيل، يرفع رايات العدل جيل ورا جيل.
في 20  سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 سنة 20 س
you.
كتبته مصر من زمان.
إن تحقيق أهدافنا بدأ ببناء دولة مدنية ديمقراطية.
طريق للسلام والأمن إحنا اللي بدأناه.
تحيا مصر، تحيا مصر.
كانت بداية ورؤية لعهد جديد. اتكلمنا والدنيا سمعتنا، ويوم بعد يوم رايتنا بتعلى وتعلى. النهاردة بنمثل قارة بطموحاتها وأحلام أولادها في الحرية والكرامة، في الأمن والسلام، في المساواة والعدالة، وفي التنمية المستدامة لإفريقيا وللعالم. مصر النهاردة قوة عربية إقليمية وإفريقية كبيرة. مصر في الأمم المتحدة 2019.
يسألوني مصر بالنسبة لك ايه؟ مصر أجمل شيء حصل لي بخاف عليه. يسألوني مصر بالنسبة لك ايه؟ مصر أجمل شيء حصل لي بخاف عليه. أجمل حكايات زمان ضحكت بنت الجيران. أجمل حكايات زمان ضحكت بنت الجيران. صحياني الصبح بدري ولا مرة أروح بدري. صحياني الصبح بدري ولا مرة أروح بدري. فرحة أمي بنجاحي شارع اللي كبرت فيه. صاحبي اللي كان في ظلي ومعاه عمري وتاريخي. صاحبي اللي كان في ظلي ومعاه عمري وتاريخي. معرفش ديانته ايه، كان مسلم او مسيحي. عايشينها بكل طيبة ولا تطلع منا عيبة. عايشينها بكل طيبة ولا تطلع منا عيبة. نقسم فرحتنا بينا ويكفينا القليل. روايات محفوظ وطه رامي وسومة في سماها. روايات محفوظ وطه رامي وسومة في سماها. أبو مكة وأحلى يعقوب وأحمد زويل. ويسألوني مصر بالنسبة لك إيه؟
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Sayed. And we were speaking about the climate change issue, and this file is having a special attention during this round of the UN meetings. And Egypt has a certain position, and I guess before we speak about the position of Egypt, let us first take how climate change is reflecting on Africa and the Arab world, and how we are suffering, are one of the most nations suffering from this threat?
The African continent is the most vulnerable continent all over the world from the climate change impacts. Even it is the least continent for emissions, from emissions of carbon emissions for climate change. And Africa will suffer from many impacts from the climate change, like the food insecurity, water insecurity, desertification, also the climate migration from parts to parts, which will affect the peace of within the African continent. And I think that's why in all the meetings of the UN climate change summits, Africa appeals always about its status towards climate change and the need to have a great efforts from the developed countries regarding the technology transfer, finance, training, capacity building, and other issues in order to increase its capacity to combat this threat.
You spoke here about the developed countries and that we need their efforts and their technical support, but we are all aware that two of the most pollutive countries all over the world are both the United States and China.
Yes.
And that they both have refused already to adhere to an outcome of last year. For an instance, Mr. Trump did not want to sign the outcome of the climate change pact, and even he retreated. How do we balance this? I mean, how do we take the efforts, their supports, their training, their know-how, and they are not applicable to such pacts?
I think the problem, because the United States and China both have more than 50% of the global emissions for the climate change. And by the way, the United States is not the first time to retreat from this. They retreat also from the Kyoto Protocol.
Yes.
Because of the, as I mentioned, the industrial and economic lobbies in the United States, they don't want to be committed for reduction of emissions, because this will affect their activities. And until now, even the United States does efforts in the climate change combating, but they want to do this without any commitment towards the world, towards the developing countries. In the other side, China was one of the developing countries. Until now, it is one of the developing countries. It is not mentioned now as a developed country.
But it is of the strongest economies worldwide.
Yes, but,
it's just the population issue and the GDP.
China, as I see, they start a few decades to prepare themselves for this issue. I mean, they start developing the renewable energy industry, and also to make a good plan and a good strategy to reduce the emissions in China.
Yes.
And they are doing good efforts. But in the United States, they are doing the efforts, but without any commitment.
Anyway, good news that yesterday a large number of American companies have already came together, and they said that they will start applying measures of reducing gas emissions. That would be
even some cities, some cities and some states in the United States, they claim that they are committed to the agreement,
Yes.
because they have many measures with emission reduction, and they have good measures, and they can do this because the states have the freedom to do this.
We'll get back to making people more aware what is gas emission, but before I get to that, let me get back to you. And since we spoke Istanbul about Africa and about threats, yesterday the president met with both the Sierra Leone president and the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is the FAO. And the President spoke about two important issues, which is the representation of Africa at the United Nations, particularly the Security Council, and of course the food safety and security, and Egypt's keenness on more cooperation on this particular sector of its economy. How far do you think those two issues are taking a very important part of the President's speeches and the President's statements before the UN list?
Well, I guess the President will be presenting, of course, the Egyptian position when it comes to the reform of the United Nations. And within the African Union, we have an African position towards the reforms of the UN. That all African countries are abiding by it. Maybe we'll push it further a little bit, but it's not an issue which will be solved immediately, the reforms of the United Nations, especially the Security Council issue, because the veto issue, the positions of the 5 bigs and so on, Germany now have settled to being included whenever there are very serious negotiations, like what has happened with Iran, the 5+1. So they were obliged to bring Germany within, in spite that they are not a permanent member in the Security Council. So I guess the issue of the reform of the UN will be with us for some time to come. Whether the African position have changed or developed further, I'm not sure, because the position was taken a few years back, and we are all committed to it. The position of Africa to be represented by 3 countries in the Security Council, permanent members. The debate is whether they have veto or no veto. The debate is whether this is this country or that country, and so on. And this is happening all around the world. In Europe, the same discussion is going on, and also in Latin America and in Asia, who's eligible to be a permanent member to represent this continent. So this is as the reform. The other question was the food and security.
Agriculture security.
Of course, food and security.
But let me, before we speak about this, because this is another challenge, a worldwide challenge, food and agriculture security, let's have a quick break and we'll come back.
مصر مش أي أرض، مش حبات تراب ورمل، دي كل شبر فيها يعني فرصة، يعني أمل. دي أرض مروية بإصرار وعزيمة وعمل. كل نقطة مية غالية بتفتح طريق لبكرة. جاري استصلاح 1.5 مليون فدان ضمن 4 مليون فدان مستهدفة للاستصلاح. صوب زراعية يتم تجهيزها بأحدث التكنولوجيا. وتخصص 30,000 فدان في الوادي الجديد لزراعة 2.5 مليون نخلة ضمن مشروع توشكا. تم رفع الحظر المفروض على المحاصيل المصرية وفتح أسواق جديدة للتصدير. أما المزارع السمكية فارتفع إنتاجها بعد زيادة عدد المزارع السمكية الحديثة، حيث تم الانتهاء من 1360 حوض بمزرعة بركة غليون. و4440 حوض في مشروع هيئة قناة السويس، وجاري تنفيذ مزرعة شرق بورسعيد السمكية على مساحة 15,000 فدان ومزرعة مثلث الديبة. ونخلق في الرمل حياة وجمال وإيدين تحصد خير ملهوش حد. بلغ حجم الاستثمارات خلال 6 سنوات حتى يونيو 2020 48 مليار و500 مليون جنيه. مصر، التحدي والإنجاز.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stressed on Monday that Egypt seeks to apply the 100 million Healthy Lives initiative to the African countries, pointing out that the country succeeded to check more than 60 million citizens within the same initiative. In his speech before the Comprehensive Healthcare Coverage Summit in New York, which is held on the sidelines of the 74th round of the UN General Assembly, President al-Sisi said that Egypt has put the citizens' health on top of its priorities. al-Sisi added that Egypt had already started to apply the comprehensive healthcare insurance. The president also called on the development partners to work for achieving a decent life for all Egyptians. Also on the sidelines of the 74th UNGA meeting, President al-Sisi held a meeting with Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. During the meeting, President al-Sisi congratulated the Italian Premier over his re-election. The meeting tackled means of enhancing Egyptian-Italian ties in different domains. The meeting also focused on a number of international files of common interest. And for his part, the Italian Prime Minister hailed the Egyptian-Italian strong relations.
Right, so welcome back, and that was a quick report on the President's activities during today at the UN GA 74th round. Back to you, Ambassador Stambulian. We were speaking about the food and security, but also health, because those two issues were very important and were of the efforts Egypt has exerted great deals in. Please elaborate.
Well, actually, the president was trying to get the initiative that was held in Egypt for health insurance, not the health insurance, but that relates to the
health sector at large. Yes. 100 million healthy lives, and all initiatives that have been taken.
We were able to get 60 million people to be checked health-wise and to be treated and so on. This initiative is being presented to Africa by the president to implement a similar one in the whole of Africa. So it's 100 مليون صحة, 100 million health. مش كده؟
Right. It's the
I think that
healthy lives.
So this is
and also the virus C eradication.
This entails virus C. This entails virus C.
Wanted to speak also about the food security and agriculture. I have very limited times, and I don't think we'll be able to speak about the gas emission, and we'll have to speak about that in next episodes in full. So food security before we end. Food security.
And the climate change also. The climate change has a very serious impacts regarding
on food security.
Because water scarcity and also desertification, the production, the crop pattern of the products, and also the biodiversity will be affected seriously by the climate change. And all this, in addition to the impact of high temperature and humidity on increasing again some types of diseases like malaria, malaria, and other malnutrition. All this and the heat waves will affect the old people and the children. These are very serious health impacts from the climate change.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, my time is out. I have to end it here. I had lots and lots of other questions pertaining to today's activities, but I'm sure we'll have all the week to speak about Ambassador Hagar al-Islambuli, former Assistant Foreign Minister, Dr. Said Sabry, Senior Climate Change Expert and Egypt's former representative at the latest or the last Climate Change Summit. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Dear viewers, many thanks for watching, and we'll be continuing with coverages to the activities of the President. We'll be also broadcasting the speech of the President as soon as it comes. Until tomorrow, it's good night.